Perfect. So for one of the first steps is you're going to need to grab a pencil. We are going to be doing a little bit of sketching together. So I'll go ahead and pivot and we'll go ahead and get started together. If you have any questions throughout class, you're welcome to use the chat window at any time, as well as you can unmute yourself at any time for any questions. All right, so to get started, we are going to be sketching our leaf. So I'm using this as a reference. I'm not going to like put this on here and outline it. If anybody wants to do that, this is a no judgment zone. So if you're new or just as a friendly reminder, I want you to take your own approach and bring in your own ideas throughout tonight's class. So if you're inspired to like take a leaf and like outline it like a few times, feel free to do that. But I'm going to be a little courageous and try sketching this. And one of the things I want you to think about is the scale or the size of this leaf. So this leaf right now, if I did the size of that this is, it would be, probably 5 or 6 inches and like across in the middle. For me, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, but I'm going to position my leaf in the center and I'm going to want equal proportions on the left and the right. So maybe one of the first things I'll do is I'll make a couple of like stationary dots, maybe a couple of guiding dots on where I want the top of the leaf to be, and maybe where I want the sides to be. So what I did was I did 3 dots, 1, 2, and 3. And you can go about this any way that you want. For me, this helps kind of balance. Is my left to my right equal? This one might need to come over a little bit. So equal distance on the left side and on the right side. And then in the middle, I'm going to come down about this much on the top. And the leaf is going to have lots of different points, but this will help us be guided to get started. So you have 3 dots. Now, if you don't have a leaf, it's okay. But let's talk about a few of the properties of this leaf. The leaf has 3 primary shapes to the leaves, and one's the top, which is the highest, but then there's 2 more points. So what I'm going to do is, whether I have this leaf or not, I can tell you that the 2 points, 1 and 2 on the sides, are out here, but it's going to be a little further down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center dot. I'm just going to do an imaginary line down and come over. And I'm going to do a dot for the tips of those secondary leaves. I'll make these dots a little bigger and darker so you can see them. And this is just to kind of get us started. Now, if you wanted to bring them down and out, you can kind of play with them visually. For me, I'm kind of bringing mine down and out a little bit. But these dots will help us kind of get the position of our leaf in shape. And we'll play with how we use these bottom dots, but try to look at your picture and have these be nice and level. So maybe you take a paintbrush, and this dot over here is way too high. So you can move these dots around to make sure that they are equal from the left and the right, equal-ish, right? Okay, maybe I'll use my paintbrush just to say, okay, that's fairly level, right? Like this. Maybe these, is that fairly level? Great. And then maybe I'll put a small dot underneath this main one for where the bottom of the leaf is going to be, the underside. It's going to be fairly equal. It can be fairly in line with these bottom ones, but take a minute just to get these dots in line. Mine isn't right. Let's see here. This dot's over a little too much. So it's okay. This is a little bit of the planning that we're doing before we start painting. So again, I'll repeat these. You have 1 main dot here at the top. Then you have 2 side dots here for the primary point and secondary points. And then these we may move them around for some of the lower points on our leaf. And we'll have a couple of lower things down here, but we're just kind of getting started a little bit. And then, as you can see, the leaf has there's a bit of a connector. So let's do this. It's a little bit different. We're going to draw some lines to connect this bottom dot out to the edge of the leaf. So take a paintbrush and use it as a ruler and do a faint line just to connect. This is going to start to kind of build the leaf object and do a line that connects the dots. So you see the 3 primary leaves. Now there's a ton of ways you can do leaves. Last time I did this on my own, I freehanded it. It wasn't that successful. It's better to spend a little time with planning. A little bit of time with planning is a good thing. So these are the centers of the leaves. This is where the veins will be. So this line will be a vein. So what I'm going to have you do is make the tip with your pencil of each of these leaves a little pointy. And I'll bring it a little closer so you can see it. And we're going to start to sketch out these leaves together. And what we're going to do is these are going to kind of come down. And there's this U shape right here that connects the leaves. But what's going to happen is there's a couple of little points. So 1, 2 rounded points to connect the leaf. And I'll bring it a little closer. So I want you just to play with connecting these leaves on the interior from this left to the top and the top to the right, and have 2 little points. So come down, do 1 rounded point up, come down again with another point, and then create that webbed U. And do the same thing here. 1, 2, and then come down. And you can play with these, but we're just creating the edges of these leaves. And these steps will really go a long way, let me tell you. And these little points, they're kind of facing upwards a little bit, and you can play with these shapes. And you want these rounded U's to be fairly in the same spot. So as I come around, and I can kind of reshape these points, but as I come around, I want these U's to kind of land in the same spot. So if this one's right about here, if I had an imaginary line coming over, up and up. And this will really get our leaf will be symmetrical by us taking our time to do a little bit of sketching. And you can play with these little points, but these connecting U's will really help bring it to life. And then you can play with, I'm going to do 3 on the underside. Maybe I'll do another lower point down here. And you can play with how you round the bottom of your leaf. Now there might be another point or 2, but you want to try to make it symmetrical. You may or may not use these lower dots, but visually, maybe you make your leaf a little longer down here. That's why we take our time. And we just do a little bit of sketching. So on the underside, I'm doing 2. This one's a little wide. So you can kind of bring your dots in down here if you want to. You can always erase these lower dots on the left and right if you want. Those were there if we needed them. And on this leaf, there's just 2 kind of lower kind of points. They're kind of on the interior. So if I wanted to do a little bit of a lower point and to just meet it up at the top, you could. Just use your eye. All leaves are a little bit different, but try keeping it a little bit symmetrical. Use your eraser. It's okay to have lots of lines, because you can always come in and erase it. this is drawing, and drawing can be really hard if you're not used to drawing all the time. So don't get discouraged. Just go for it. Be a little courageous. I know you can do it. And I'm kind of like working my way down and around these leaves. I'm thinking symmetrical. So if my bottom leaf kind of comes out to here, this one needs to come out a little bit too. And again, it's okay to erase, but imagine one side reflects the other. That's what help it will look more natural. So I'm coming in and I'm just modifying and erasing lines. It's okay. We're going to put a lot of paint on top of this, so it's not a big deal. And you can see it's starting to balance because I'm taking my time and I'm reflecting how low one side is, how far out another side comes. Doesn't have to be perfect, but take a few minutes to play with this. In the middle of my leaf, it kind of came up in the middle of it. See how it's a little higher? It's kind of rounds in and up, and it rounds in and up. Maybe erase any extra lines. We are going to be painting over much of this, so don't worry too much. And you can leave those lines, those vein lines right in there, those we're going to use. And then you can look at these points on the edges. And one of the things I like teaching in my classes is a little bit of reflection. So if I lean back in my chair, I'll say, okay, let me look at this leaf from far away. Do I want to change anything about it? Does it look even to me? And this bottom needs to be a little bit lower. Here we go. So by leaning back in your chair and reflecting on the shapes, that mirrored image, you can make modifications. I have a little point over here. So this is where we have a little patience just to get our shape right. And this will be worth it, I promise. If you wanted to add more leaves, if you wanted to do your own scene in the background, you absolutely could. I'm not going to do a stem for my leaf yet. But I'll let everybody kind of work on this shape. Kind of take your eraser and go around and erase any lines you may not need. I'm just going to kind of follow my eye all the way around just to make sure each point is what I want it to be. I am not striving for perfection. Believe it or not, I haven't painted or drawn a ton of leaves in my life, and I feel like the shapes and the lines that we did was much better than my first one. So just have a little patience with yourself as you do this. And mine is not perfectly like symmetrical and even from one side to the other. Ballpark, it's like 80% there, but don't be too critical on yourself. And I'm just erasing some of these dots. All right. So mine's like a medium-sized leaf, right? If I held the original up here, it's not quite the same size. It's a little bit bigger. I'm not going to draw in the stem yet. We'll do that at the very end. What I'll do is I'll take a look around the room. If anyone is crying for help and needs me, I'm here for you. Otherwise, I will go ahead and remove the spotlight and I'll flip it to gallery view. And give me a thumbs up if folks are doing pretty good with the outline. Oh, there we go, Douglas. Nice job, Douglas. That looks awesome. Okay, people are doing good. All right, cool. We'll transition. Thank you for that. Okay. If my internet ever gets funky, just let me know. I can holler upstairs if they're using too much internet upstairs. All right, cool. So we're going to transition to the fun part. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition to a little bit of, now that we have this outline in, we're going to transition to our red paint, and we'll just do a basic, a little bit of a red outline around the top side of the leaf. So go ahead and open up the red paint that I sent you. You only need about a thumbnail's worth. You don't need too much, or a quarter, whatever works. And I'm going to use one of the smaller brushes that I sent you. So you can either use the 2/0 brush. You could use a 1 or a 2. They're small gold numbers on the sides of your brushes. So use whatever brush you're most comfortable with. And I'm going to go ahead and stick that brush right in my water. It's good to have those bristles wet for when you paint. And I kind of like to wipe off some of those water droplets. And we're going to do a little bit of outlining just to get started. So go ahead and put some of that red paint on that brush. And the bottom side of the leaf, we are going to do green outlining. So stay up like on the top, mainly 2/3. But I'm just going to do some basic outlining with red, just to get a little paint on here. So take a few minutes. This is nice and relaxing. If you wanted to add any extra points, you could. Just to get a little bit of paint on your canvas, doing a little bit of red outlining. Take a deep breath, and you can settle into the process. We're done with that pesky drawing step. I give you all 5 stars for attempting that. It's not easy. However, I hope the points in the mirrored part helped a little bit. So I'm not going to go any lower than that with my red. I'm going to do the whole bottom with a green outline. So I'm going to stay up on the top part with a little bit of red. And you can see my outline isn't necessarily, it's not too thin. So don't worry about this too much, because the whole exterior, the whole interior kind of inside is going to be red in this area. So it's not too bad. And this is where you can decide if you wanted to make your leaf a little bit bigger. You can always expand out. My leaf is a fairly moderate size for tonight's class. Some of you might want to paint multiple leaves. Again, whatever ideas you have that you want to incorporate, feel free to do that. But I'm leaving the kind of like the bottom lines of this leaf the way they are right now. So as you're doing that, I want you to grab your yellow and put a little bit of yellow on your plate. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have so much fun with blending in our next steps. So hang on to your hat. So I'm going to put a dollop of yellow near my red. Excuse me. And I'm going to clean off my brush. Now, for the next step, we're going to start in the interior with yellow. And we're going to be mixing orange and red, working our way to the outside. You can use whatever brush you're most comfortable with. If you wanted to use a little bit bigger of a brush, maybe a 5 or one of your big brushes or your medium size that I sent you, feel free. I'm using a number 5. I'm going to grab some of my yellow paint, kind of swirl around a little bit. And I'm going to paint the middle yellow. So you can paint this yellow any way that you want. You can have fun with kind of applying some bursting kind of textures. And you're going to start to fill in the entire interior. Now you might see some of these lines. It's okay. You can fill the bottom part of the sleeve with a little bit of yellow, going all the way down if you wanted to. So what we're going to be doing is yellow is the bursts on the inside. And as we work our way to the red lines, we're going to be transitioning to orange and then transitioning to red. So you can have fun and play with these steps. You can follow along, or you can just do your own thing. I support that 100%. But I'm going to fill in the whole bottom side of this leaf yellow, because we'll tag some green in there in a little bit. So these points. And we will be outlining our leaf with some black contrasting today, maybe a dark blue. It doesn't matter too much. But I'm coming down And you can decide how much yellow of this bursting that you want. But when you want to start to get a little bit mischievous, you can grab a little bit of your red, and a little red will go a long way. And in between these two colors, you can mix an orange. And I'm not kidding, a little red goes a long way. Like, to make an orange is like 85% red and 15% yellow. And then what you can do is you can be playful. So you can start to bring in a little bit of orange into your yellow. Like that. And then if you want to be a little crazy, you can take a little bit of your yellow and start to blend it in with the orange to help bring that orange down and in. So it's really having fun. This is the challenge of tonight. I want you to blend a little bit of the orange and yellow together. Look at that. See how it had this beautiful transition in between the colors? Because I applied orange paint and then I took a little bit of yellow and even helped it soften in a little bit more. So my technique is take a little bit of orange, put a little bit of orange on, and then go get a little bit of yellow with the same brush and bring in a little bit of yellow to help that transition. Now, if you wanted to use your finger and do a little smudging, that's always a little fun. If you don't like your fingers to get dirty, you can use the corner of a paper towel, but you're basically going to just have some fun. See that transition? Really beautiful. And I'm following the grain of the leaf. So I'm kind of going up to the tip and down, up to the tip and down. And I'm using my finger to blend in a little orange and a little yellow at the same time. And that's where you get that really cool blended effect. See how it's softening? It's because I'm playing with the yellow in the orange while the yellow is wet. And if you feel like you have too much orange, maybe take your brush, spin it around, go get a little bit more yellow and put the yellow right on top of the orange. And then maybe use your finger to blend it in just a little bit. And you can kind of, if you have a lot of paint, you can push it up towards like the top. So for me, I'm kind of smudging up to the top of the point of the leaf. That's okay. We're going to put red up there anyways. See how that beautiful transition? So play with that in your own time here. I'm putting on a little bit of orange paint. Just kind of spinning my brush on my palette to take some of the paint off. Going and grabbing a touch of the yellow. And I'm gently blending these in together. And then I might use my finger to dab. I like the smudging technique. That's working well for me today. But with art, you always experiment. Everyone has their own ideas. See that's nice and soft transition? Really fun. And we're going to do the same thing with the red as we work our way around. So again, I'm transitioning between yellow and orange paint for this technique. You could do dabbing with your finger if you want some different textures. That's kind of neat. Just a little bit. Don't worry, this paint comes off your hands. Really fun. All right. You can take a couple deep breaths and get settled in. I love this dabbing technique. Ooh, yes. Now, if you're new to these classes, we use our fingers, we use our paper towel sometimes. We're all here for fun. And then as I work my way out, I might bring in a little bit more orange just to ground the orange in some areas. Lean back in your chair and reflect on your work along the way. And then you can play with bringing in, mixing a third color, maybe red and orange mixed together. So this is where you can get really creative. So I did orange and I'm doing a red and orange, which is this one right here, just to help with the transition. I'm doing little brush strokes. Again, just working my way up the leaf. If you want to use your finger to dab to help the blending, you could. Beautiful. I'm swiping in and down. have fun. Most importantly, if anyone needs any help, please let me know. And you can see we're transitioning to our reds on this right side of my picture. It's really quite fun. I'm just going to slowly work my way around. I haven't used any water. Sometimes in these classes, I use water to blend from one into another. If you wanted to use water to blend, you can. I haven't yet tonight, which is fine. But if you're comfortable using a water technique, feel free to use water. If you want to take this red and orange all the way up to the tip of the leaf, you can, because we can come in with a little bit of red to really do some more bold edging. But this is your leaf, or these are your leaves. You can do whatever you want here on these steps. If you want to have more of an orange leaf, you could do more orange. And again, I'm staying away from this bottom yellow area because we're going to bring some green in, just like how we're bringing the reds and oranges in. We're going to bring some green in the bottom after. So I might take this reddish orange and maybe I'd start tapping into my red a little bit to fill in these leaf tips. And this is where our leaf starts to come to life a little bit. And if you need to go to a smaller brush to get into some of these nooks and crannies, feel free to switch brushes at any point. You can also bring some of the red in. If you brought in any of the orange, you can bring the red in maybe a little bit below the outline, just to add a little bit more contrast. I'm going to bring in a little bit more red in some areas. This is where you kind of lean back and one of the things I teach in these classes is a little bit of mindfulness, and you've probably heard me say that before, but it's just reminding you to reflect on your work as you paint. You will leave happier if I remind you to reflect on your work. I will pull you out of the zone to reflect, because sometimes we get so in the moment and so in the zone with art, we forget to say, okay, shoot, do I like the way this leaf looks, or do I want to change anything about this before I move on? But you can see that nice solid outline leaves is really holding contrast for the leaf itself. So everyone's working on these details. I'm super excited to see how you're doing. This is where you can always take a smaller brush and kind of refine some of these points. Mine are not all even, and I'm accepting imperfection tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay if these are not all lined up. So be really kind to yourself as you paint. And I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to wash my brush. And it's time for me to check in with each of you. See how you're doing. Diane's like, I don't know, Megan. All right. So whenever you're ready, amazing. Diane, that looks lovely. Douglas, awesome. Ooh, Alice, look at the detail. Very nice. Terry Cody, that is by far the most perfect leaf I've ever seen in my life. Yours is way better than mine. Awesome. Ooh, there's Leslie Moore and Co. Nice work, ladies. Oh, some of you are doing 2 leaves. I love that. Wonderful job. So one of the reasons we show off our work to one another is because all of our leaves look so different, right? Some of your leaves are bigger, some of your leaves are smaller. My leaf definitely looks different than some of yours. Like some of yours have like a more of a height on the bottom. Mine's more stubby. Doesn't matter. We're all having fun. All right. How's it going over there? Is it at? Let's see here. Beautiful. That's gorgeous. Miss Susan, well done. Leaves are hard. And let me tell you, the more you practice drawing these, you'll get better. Mine is already better than last time. I just give myself a little grace with drawing leaves. All right. Awesome work. So you all take another few minutes and play with the colors on this leaf. And I'll do the same. I'll go ahead and re-spotlight my video. And you may want to make modifications, right? So I may want to add a little bit more like yellow points on the bottom. Mine's very rounded on the bottom. And I forgot to add a couple points. So you'll notice something, that you might want to change or modify. For me, I'm just going to add a couple more yellow points on the bottom of this leaf. Now the yellow may be hard to cover up with the pencil. So if anybody needs to like add a second coat, yellow is sometimes so hard to cover with pencil. I am going to probably use, my green will probably cover most of it. However, if I wanted to make any changes there, I could. Maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. Again, you make any modifications as you wish. I may use a pencil and outline a little bit of this, just ever so slightly. But I'll keep an eye on the clock. Everyone's doing really well. The purpose of this step is just to get this base color in for your leaf. And we'll do the green in just a minute or two. So if anybody wants to transition to doing a little bit of green at the bottom, we can start to blend that green color together. I can't recall if I sent you all green. If I did, use your green. If I did not send you green, it's yellow, and a little bit of blue goes a long way. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of white as well. The white just helps add a little bit more pigment, help that be a little bit, it basically helps with the opacity. And I'm using some of my older paints tonight, so it might look a little different. But we're basically going to feather some green in on the underside of that. So I'm gonna go back and forth between yellow and green, just like we did with our yellow and oranges. So take your time on whatever step you're at. I'm gonna mix a green. Ooh, too much blue in your green. It looks like a bluish green. I need it to be more green than that. A little more yellow. And we always take our time blending the right colors for our classes to make sure we're happy with it. I don't want you to have to use a puke green if you don't want to use a puke green. There we go. I think your green is nicer than mine. If I sent it to you, I'm going to add a little teal, I think. But I'm going to gently feather this green on the underside. Ever so slightly. So I'm going to do an outline. I'm going to outline these bottom leaves. My green's more of like a sagey green. Yours might look a little different. So I'm just going to outline the bottom of these leaves. And this is covering my pencil, so that's good. And then I'm going to just gently, with a really soft brush, I'm going to bring in the green just a little bit up and in. If you wanted to grab a little bit of a dip of yellow to help with the transition, you could. But the green is just softening any way that you want to bring in this green. Feel free. When the yellow and the green get mixed together, when you're transitioning, I'm transitioning upward. I'm doing kind of a soft wave up. It's just blending, and I'm doing a really soft swiping brush stroke. Soft, very light bristles dragging across your canvas. I'm going to bring this a little closer, and you can see that it gives you more of like a wispy transition up and in. So it's just a little bit of green coming in, soft, wispy. And then while the green is still wet, I went and grabbed a little bit of yellow and used that to help wisp in, and it helps with that blend between the green and the yellow, up and into the yellow itself. You can use your finger, it's clean, up into the yellow. If you happen to do something you don't like, if you grab a corner of your paper towel and you dab it into your water, If the paint is still wet, you can kind of like wipe it off a little bit. Very handy. So for me, I was doing a little too much green, and because it was still wet, I was able to wipe it a little bit on my canvas. You can also always grab like a little bit of yellow. You can always paint over something. But I'm using my finger to blend it up and in a little bit. But this is all an experiment. Art is always about experimenting with how you blend your colors, how much you use, how do they look like when you use one to another. That's why we're all here. We're all here just to take a little bit of time to play with a little paint together. It's a great midweek break. If anyone needs any help with any of this transitional blending, please let me know. For me, I'm just bringing the green up just a little bit, and we'll be using this like a really soft green for some of the stem colors as well. So really continue that Mother Nature effect. So I might use a little green and a little bit of yellow with one of my smaller brushes for the stems. Let's see, this is a 2/0. Let's use this one. The veins on the leaf. And I can see those lines, which how convenient. So I might do a line coming down. Ooh, so pretty. How handy we did those lines. I love that. With a really light touch. And if I do something that you don't like or that you don't want to do, feel free to do your own thing. You will not hurt my feelings, I promise. But I'm using a light green. And if you want to look at, if anybody has one of these leaves in front of them, you can see that there's those very poignant lines, but then there's these other secondary, like branches, right, from these veins. So 1, 2, 3, they're staggered, just like tree branches. And there's maybe 4 or 5 on each side. So as an example, maybe I'll do one here and I'll stagger them down and just take your time. I'll show you the color paint I'm using. I'm using this like green that I came up with. You can I mixed a little bit of white. If you wanted to use more of a yellowy green, whatever green you want to mix is fine. If you wanted to do a darker green, you could. I'm doing it more of like a neutral green. But I'm going to alternate adding in a little bit of veins for these leaves. And I'm going to come all the way down. And let's look at my subject here. They come all the way down. So I'll hold this up close just in case anyone doesn't have a leaf near them. I'll hold this leaf here as an example for a moment so you can see how those veins are. I love this. It's like we're all truly painting Mother Nature here. This is awesome. Very cool. And you can kind of lean back in your chair. You can do as many or as few as you wish of these veins in your leaf. Alternating from the left to the right, connecting them to that primary. And they're kind of coming all the way down. And I'm doing a gentle line, a gentle detail. And this looks awesome. I love the green that I used. For me, it's working. If anyone needs help, please let me know. I'm sure you're all doing great. You can always spin your brush on your canvas to have a nice fine point. But everyone has brand new brushes. And if you've been to these classes before, you have quite the collection. So that's awesome. But take your time alternating. Don't forget to enjoy your tea or your water, or if you're going for wine, go for it. Enjoy that wine. All right. I usually make tea for these classes. I feel like I'm behind tonight, but that's all right. I'll have one after. Kind of lean back in your chair. If you feel like you do too much paint in one area or another, don't worry. You can always take a wet paper towel. You can always dab something up quickly. Like for me, there's a little too much paint here. So if I take the corner of a paper towel, oh, I am lucky enough, it's coming right up. Awesome. You can use your finger to kind of smudge it over. Our background's dry, so it shouldn't come up. So just if you're wiping something, wipe it gently. You shouldn't have a problem. So take a few minutes to play with these veins. But we should really have a nice solid leaf color painted in. We have not added our stem yet. We'll do that after. We'll work on our background as our next step. But all these veins are really connected down here to this bottom. So they're all coming down and connecting right to the bottom of the leaf right here. That is the hub. That is where the magic happens here. All right. Alternating left and right. And I'm going to lean back and reflect on my work in just a minute. So I am leading by example for you to lean back in your chair and see how you're doing. Sometimes taking a step away or stopping painting and checking how many veins you have without going too crazy, right? So I'm going to put my brush down thoughtfully, and I'm going to hold this up so you can see some of the detail up close. I really like the green interior. You could have done orange. In my inspiration, other one, I did like a darker green. Any color green that you wanted to do, that's fine. And take a look around. It's just a great step in the class where if you wanted to make any of the points a little bit different, you could do that. I'm going to probably do a little bit refinement at the end of my for the points, just to really make them a little more pointy, because we have the background we're going to do. We're going to be painting around the leaf. So I'm going to take a minute and let this dry, and I'll check in with each of you to see how you're doing. Seeing if I have any seltzers down here. Let's see. I'm going to remove my spotlight and check in. Oh, there's Miss Gloria. Excellent. Nice job. Leslie Moore and Co. Amazing. Douglas, awesome detail. Diane, look at that leaf. Now, did you trace that or did you draw that out by yourself? Awesome. There's Miss Pamela. Beautiful leaves, Pamela. I love those. Wow, you're pros at leaves. Give me a thumbs up. Did the drawing help ahead of time? I think it did quite a bit. It increased our success rate, right? Okay, cool. All right. There's Miss Terry. Oh, Terry, those are so pretty. I love it. Oh, lovely. Cindy's in the zone. We're not going to interrupt Cindy right now. She is so focused. And so is Alice. Alice was like, I got to get this color right here. All right. So give your leaf a minute to dry. I think my color is good. It's well balanced. I'm not going to worry too much about the points yet. And we can start to think about the background as one of our next steps in paneling. We're doing great on time. So all good there. Give me a thumbs up if you are pretty close to having some of that basic detail done. Give me one more minute if you feel like you need a little more time. I have a couple minutes. I have a couple thumbs. Okay, cool. So we'll slowly transition. There is no rush for this next step. I'll go ahead and make my screen bigger again for Spotlight. And we can talk through this next step, which is quite fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of like slats. I'll bring up this original inspiration again. This was really rough. I actually painted this in an hour, which is crazy with another class. It was quite challenging. That's why it looks a little rough. But in this, we're going to do the background next. And we're going to do a number of slats. So for me, I did 3 slats, which means 2 lines. So 1 and 2. I might do like 4 today, or maybe 3 lines. So if anybody has a ruler handy or like an old magazine or an edge, that will help you in this next step. So maybe look around your room. See if you have anything like with a nice solid flat edge. This will be a good guiding line for you. And we're going to do basically vertical lines. And if you want to be precise and like do like 3 inches between each one, you can. I'm just going to kind of wing it a little bit. But I'm going to be a little thoughtful on where I want to put my first one. So maybe I'll start my first one here. And I have, again, I have a big ruler. If you have just like a flat edge of something, maybe a cardboard box, a box of cereal would probably work really well too. I'm going to do just a couple of lines with my pencil as a start. If you wanted to use paint here, you could. I'm going to just do pencil first. And I'm going to do, oh goodness, how many of these am I going to do? I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to do as many as I want. So let's see. I'm doing about 2.5, 3 inches slats, and I'm going behind my leaf. So do not put the lines on top of your leaf. I'm going to do mine a little precise. So I have 2.5 in between. So I'm just going to, since I am measuring today, I'm going to do it a little bit more detailed. I typically just eyeball it, but since I have the ruler out, I might as well do it the right way. All right. So I'm going to do a number of slats with a flat edge. And sometimes by taking just a few minutes to measure out or do a nice flat edge, it will make your painting look that much more professional. But that's where you really wow your friends. They're going to say, you did that? That is so cool. You'll be the painter of your community. All right, let me see. I have one more. It looks like I'm doing 4 lines today. All right. Take your time. There's no rush. If you're not here yet, don't worry. And then you're going to use black paint, or if you wanted to use another color, you could. So there's my lines. You may or may not be able to see them. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, which is kind of dividing it into 5 panels, skinny panels. So the lines that I did on here were black. I did outline my leaf. I did shading with black in the last class. So I'm going to do, maybe I'll do like maybe I'll do dark red lines today, like black and a little bit of red. Any dark color that you want to use for these lines as an outline per se, feel free to do that. But if you all outlined in pencil, great. What I might do first before I do the lines is I might just paint the whole background. Because if I paint the background, I'm still going to see the lines. Because the background's going to be lighter, and then I'm going to do darker lines. So I'm going to do a very like light red, pinkish background, maybe a little bit of orange here and there. See how this is like a light pink and red and orange? I'm going to do that next. And I'm going to use a little bit of water because water's my friend here. So whenever folks are ready, do those outlines first if you can with a pencil. If you're using paint, then that's totally fine. You can use paint and you can still do this step with me. But I'm going to get the biggest brush that I sent you. And I'm going to paint the whole background, but I'm going to use a light color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a light color, and I'm going to use red paint, maybe a little orange, and a little bit of white. And I'm going to find a nice light color of choice. Now you can use water or you can use white. I'm going to grab a little bit of white and lighten this first, and then I'll play with the water technique. I like this dusty rose color. There's something really pretty about it. So I've been mixing red and white together. I am going to get a pink tone. You can use, if you wanted to do a light yellow in the background, you could do a light yellow. If you wanted to do a light orange, you could do a light orange. I want you to find a color that you enjoy. This is too pink for me, so I'm going to mix in a little bit more red until I find the right color. And there's no rush. Maybe a little yellow. I might go for this like dusty orange pinkish color. We'll see. And this is where we just take our time until we find the right color. Ooh, I'm getting there. I kind of have this reddish pink color. This is kind of cool. So once you have the color that you think you like, I'm going to basically use a little water on my brush. So I'm going to kind of put some of that over here. I'm going to use water on my brush. I'm going to create a water wash. So if you haven't done this before, it's mixing water and acrylic paint together. And I'm kind of trying to get some of the paint off the brush so it's just watery. And I'll bring this closer so you can see it. It's like a watery paint substance. And then I'm going to do horizontal brush strokes, or sorry, vertical brush strokes up and down to fill in the background. Now this is pink. And if you don't like the color, just grab a little white, grab a little yellow and play with it. So just, this is really like where we all kind of do our own thing, but I'm just going to grab a little bit of yellow and blend this in. It might turn a little orange. It's okay. I'm going to do vertical brush strokes up and down to fill in this background. So I might use a little bit of white to soften it. I'm going to just do a little bit of gentle outlining around my leaf. I'm even leaving a little bit of a white around it. You could take a little water on your brush. Any way you want to fill this background, feel free. I may even want to add like a little more red to this. So this is all you. I kind of like the orange. And many of you know in this class, acrylic dries really quickly. So if you put colors on that you're like, I do not like this, just kind of finish the brush stroke, cover up the white, and just know that you can always paint on top of it. So for me, I might change this color a little bit, and that's okay. But I'm dabbling back and forth between white and pink and a little bit of this red. And I'm just maintaining these horizontal brush strokes. With the edge of the big brush, I'm just slowly working my way around this leaf, and I'm leaving a little bit of a white buffer zone. It will also help it kind of jump out off the page a little bit, which is quite fun. So fill in all those white nooks and crannies. And I'm kind of getting some blend of colors. You can see some orange sorbets coming through. You can see a little bit of pink. I'm just playing with this, again, dipping between yellow, white, and a little bit of this orange, just kind of working my way around. Being really open-minded on how this is going to turn out. Leaving a little bit of a white buffer around the edges. And doing those horizontal brush strokes. Or sorry, vertical brush strokes, excuse me, all vertical brush strokes. And I'm going up and down. And the more you go up and down, the more these colors will blend in together. So I'll show you my palette again so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I have like a pink and watery substance right here. And then I have yellow and white. And I'm kind of dabbing between pink, yellow, and white all at the same time. Look at my brush. It has multiple colors on it. That's how I'm getting these different tones all mixed together. So it's a new blending technique. We haven't done a lot of like multiple colors on your brush at the same time in my classes, but give it a shot. Dancing around the edge of these leaves. Leaving a little bit of a white edge in between. And I love the way this is turning out. It's quite pretty. Again, a little pink, a little yellow, a little white, all on my brush at the same time. And you can see, I'll bring this a little closer. You can see how it goes on. Look at that. There's 3 colors in one brush stroke. That's pretty neat, right? Slowly spinning my brush. With these big brushes, you can do the technique where you hold it on the side to have more of a narrow brush stroke. But you can spin that big brush in your hand to have a wider brush stroke. So you can play with that as you wiggle your way around these leaves, these edges of the leaf. And I love this outline around the leaf. It's really making it stand out. And I may not even do the black outline on the leaf. So there's different options that we can do. If you happen to get too close to the leaf and you lose some of the white buffer, don't worry, you can always go in and add some of that white buffer back. And if you don't want the white buffer, you don't have to do that. It's just what I'm inspired to do tonight. But you as the artist, I will always encourage you to incorporate your own ideas, and you do you. Always, always. So you may run out of paints or need to remix. So for me, I ran out of like my watery pink. So I'll grab a little bit of the pink that I mixed, and I'm going to take a few more dollops of the water to have that watery wash kind of available. And again, I was using that watery pink with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white, all on my brush at the same time. Get a little crazy here for a Wednesday. And using that to dance around the edges. You may have your own blend. You may not be doing this pink and orange and white or yellow and white. That's okay. You might have your own blend. You might have your own background color. I'm sure many of you do, and that's a good thing. But I'm here to share examples with you as you take your own approach for today's class. Take a couple deep breaths and have fun with this. It is so much fun having a couple different colors of paint on your brush at the same time. It's like a risk-free thing. It's fun to practice. Dancing around the edge of my leaf. I need a little bit more yellow. So it's always good to kind of keep your palette stocked with the colors you need. I have just a little dot of white, a little dot of yellow I'm dabbing into. I'll show you. A little bit of pink, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white, all in the same brush. Ooh-wee. All right. You want to go all the way to the left of your canvas and all the way to the right. And it's okay to do lots of layers. The more vertical fluid brush strokes, the more your colors will blend. Go back and get a little bit more. Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to smile. You are having fun. Hope this isn't too stressful for you. Hope you're having a nice time tonight. Again, a big thanks to AARP New Hampshire for having us. I will be posting the registration for the October classes at the end of class. If anyone has to leave early, please let me know. I'll drop that link sooner if you need it. That will also include the registration links in the follow-up email. So I will be sending everyone who registered for tonight's class a follow-up email with the recording of tonight's class, as well as the registration links for October, November, and December. Hope you can join. So in the step that we're doing, we're really just covering the entire background. I can still see my pencil lines, which is perfect for some of the slats that we talked about. But I am just taking my time working my way across the full background, doing lots of blending. If anyone needs any help, please let me know. I'm really excited to see how your work is going. So in just a few minutes, we'll do our first flip and reveal for our backgrounds. But I'm going all the way off the left of the canvas. And I'm going to sit back and reflect. sometimes you'll notice areas that might need a little bit of extra love. So it's okay to go in and do some touch-ups. You can always dip your brush in a little bit of water. If you have any funky brush strokes, the water can help you really help with the blending. And a gentle, soft brush stroke with a little water can really cover something up you might not like. So for me, I'm being mindful. I turned the canvas towards me and I am just looking across and doing any touch-ups in areas that might need a little bit of smoothing before I do the slats. So I want you to be happy with the background before we do the slats as a group. So a little bit of smoothing in areas, and it's a little water on my brush with just a little bit of paint, just doing a little smoothing in areas, and that will really make it come all together. Because you might have a couple of random brush strokes that get out of hand. It happens, certainly for me too. You might have some white poking through the back of your canvas. If anyone needs help, feel free to unmute, check in. Many of you are serious and in the zone. So I love a quiet room. That means everybody is so focused. This isn't too hard of an inspiration. I think you're all doing awesome. So you might notice, again, spots that might need a little bit of better coverage. For me, I have one right under the leaf right here. You can use a little extra paint. You can use a little water on your brush. You could use your paper towel for smudging if you wanted to. Again, it's okay to experiment with how you apply paint because there's a bunch of ways you can do it, right? Well, I have some pesky white canvas popping through over on the left. Sometimes when we add a lot of water, that paint pigment doesn't stick to the canvas. So it's good to reflect and go back in and add a little bit more paint in areas. All right. So I hope everyone's enjoying this step. I'm going to remove my spotlight and take a look at all of your beautiful faces and check in to see how everybody's doing. Gloria is in the zone. We are not going to interrupt Miss Gloria. All right. Douglas, beautiful, beautiful work. Wonderful. Oh, there's Miss Terry. I love the green Terry. Susan, very nice. Susan, you did a big leaf tonight. I like that. Miss Leslie, beautiful. Oh, dark background. I love that dark background. Nice work. Asadea, amazing. Beautiful colors. Diane, well done. Diane has a sorbet background going on. All right. Oh, I love that one. Nice and big and bright. The power skills. All right. I like that one. Gorgeous blending. I like that big leaf. That's awesome. There's Carla. Carla did 2 leaves. That looks fun. Oh, she's got a whole painting party going over there. Carla's having a party at her house. Go, Carla. All right. Oh, we have multiple leaves. Oh, a nice light background. Excellent job. I love this. She's walking around to everyone's canvases and showing us how it's going. Fantastic. Awesome. So many of you are still working on your backgrounds. Continue to do that. Mine is drying. I'm thinking about it. If anyone wants to add in that green stem, feel free. I might even do a little bit of a white outline around that stem. So take your time. I did a yellow stem in the last class. I like the green stem. It continues on. You can also make your stem a little bit darker. So if you wanted to add a touch of black, you could. I'll start with this solid green. Maybe I'll do that dark shadow. And my green stem is going to come down and maybe curl over to the right a little bit. You can make your stem as long or as short as you wish. And I'm just using one of my smaller brushes. for the stem. And I'm going to let the green stem dry. If anybody wants to take like a little bit of extra white paint, I like the white edging around the leaf. I'm going to leave that. If folks don't want it there, you don't have to. That's just an option from tonight's class. So I'll keep an eye on the time. Folks are working on your backgrounds. So get those backgrounds in, and then I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'm going to give everyone 2 more full minutes just to get the backgrounds in. And then at 7:15 Eastern time, oh, sorry, not 7:15. Yeah, we could do 7:15 Eastern time. We will we'll do the slat colors. So I'll give everyone 4 solid minutes just to finish the backgrounds and to put in the stem. And then at 7:15 Eastern, we'll put in the slats, and then we'll do some shading work for our leaf. But until then, feel free to take your time on whatever details mean the most to you. I'm going to take a little bit of white and just kind of clean up anywhere that needs a little bit of extra white. I like the white outlining. I'm just feeling it tonight. So I'm going to touch up areas that might need a little of white refinement. And if anyone needs any help along the way here, as you're working on these steps, don't hesitate to reach out. But take this time for yourself to make any adjustments. If you wanted to play with the points on your leaves, you wanted to adjust any of the shaping, feel free to do that. I'm using the white paint just to really kind of go around each of the points so it looks nice and clean. But you can do your own steps. And this is something you could also do even after tonight's class. If you liked the white, you could always do a little bit of this cleanup work after as well. I'm just doing a little bit of the white outlining. I don't want too much white. I'm actually going to take a little bit of it away that I just did. So a little bit of a paper towel can kind of take something away. And if you ever have water droplets, just quickly grab your paper towel and dab. Should take it away pretty quickly. Also, if your fingers are dirty and you happen to smudge something, check your fingers, maybe go wash your hands. I'm a lefty, and I always feel like I have paint all over my canvas from my fingers touching it. So 2 more minutes before we do the slats. Take your time. I'm going to use my pinky to stabilize my hand for any detailed work. We'll do those slats next. You're going to do the slats in the darker color. I might make like a maroon red for mine. I did black last class. I'm just going to use a little bit of more natural color. I'm so glad you all joined tonight, and I hope you're having fun. All right, so I just did a little bit of extra outlining. I am going to do a little bit of outlining on my stem, just a little tiny white outline. Maybe just on one side. I don't know. I could do the whole thing. Let's see what the whole thing looks like. If I don't like it, I guess I can always cover it up. There we go. I like the whole thing. Again, I'm here to experiment. So if I do something you don't like, you don't need to do it. You can make those choices. I'm always happy to be the guinea pig to show you what something looks like. I try to be a little courageous in these classes to show you different examples. So I'm going to let this dry. We're at 7:15, so that was 4 solid minutes. That flew by, I'm sure. I am going to transition to be mindful of time to doing the slats. I'm doing a darker color. So whatever your background color is, I could do red. See how this red is actually darker than my background? I could use that red. And I actually have some, but to make even more of a stronger sense, I might make a maroon. I'm going to add a tiny touch. A little black goes a long way. So like a grain size of rice of black, mixing it with red will give me a darker red. So I'm inspired to do a darker red tonight. And I want you to use, for doing these lines, I want you to use a brush with a really flat edge so you have a nice clean line. So find one of the brushes I gave you. And I'm going to grab a new brush to do this step with you. So give me just a minute. I want to do a nice clean flat edge. So I'm going to find a new one. Let's see. Ooh. So if anybody, what number is this? If anybody received the number 6, there's a flat number 6 brush. It looks like this. I went into my drawer to grab a brand new brush for this step with you so it can come out as best as possible. But I have a nice flat edge on this brush. I'm going to use this one, but I'm going to mix my dark red with this brush. So let's see here, dark red. It is a scoop of red over there, and a tiny touch of black goes a long way. So always mix your colors first. Find the right color. Ooh, it's getting darker. Ooh, that's like a red lipstick red. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh. So what you're going to do is you're basically going to follow the line. You can kind of wipe some of the paint off so it's not so goopy. And I'm going to, with a steady hand, as steady as possible, I use my pinky to stabilize my hand. And I'm going to go down the line. Now that's really thin. The last time I did this, it was a little thicker. So you can always start with a thinner line and always make it thicker. But I'm using the edge of this brush. I'm not using the wide part. I'm using the flat edge. Now I can make this thicker by just kind of going on top of it again. And slowly, if you push down, it will be a little thicker. You could do wider slats. Many of you may choose to do that. I'm going to start with this size, and then if I want to make them bigger, I can. If anybody wants to add like a weathered look to these slats, you could with your paper towel. We can kind of weather this a little bit. Anything, any texture you want to add to your background. And if you want to make this look like real wood, you can. We'll see what I'm inspired to do here in a minute. My lines are not perfectly straight. It's okay. Don't worry about that. We could have done like a barn board look with like knots in the wood. Maybe we'll do barn board in one of the upcoming classes. That could be fun. So I'm going to keep this nice and simple. I'm going to add in a little bit of a little shading with a little bit of black. I think just a little bit. I might even use like a darker red, but I'll let folks catch up. We'll do shading as one of our next steps. But I want everyone to have the background done, and I want you to fill in those slats. In the meantime, I'm going to make just a little bit darker of a red color, more of a maroon for some of the detail for our next step. So I'm going to make even a darker tone to do a little bit of detailed work. We're doing great on time. So we only have a couple steps remaining. So we did tonight's inspiration about an hour and a half, which was perfect. Our classes usually for these last about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Tonight's was a little bit more, simplified in some ways. So what you can consider for some of the next steps is this. I'll hold this up again. You can see I did some black shading around the leaf. So you can see starting on the top on like the left side, I kind of went all the way around, but I'm going to add a little bit of shading in certain areas. So if you wanted to do a full outline, you could. If you wanted to just do like the left side of the leaf points, you could do that. So I'll walk you through what a little bit of shading looks like on this leaf, just to make it pop out even more. And then I'll show you, we can do the fall in love together right in the middle. So for the shading, I'm going around the leaf. Whoever wants to do this with me, I basically took the red slatted line of this red and I made it a little darker. So you can see right here, I have like, it's like a dark blood red color. It's a little darker. And I have this number 6 brush, but you can use any small brush of choice for this outline. And I'm just going to wipe some of the paint off just so I have a little bit more control. I'm going to try the 6 to start. If I need it to use one of my smaller brushes, I'm probably going to switch to a smaller brush, but I'm going to try this to start. And I'm going to start on the left side of this. And I'm going to do it on the red leaf. I'm not going to do it in the white. So I'm going to leave the white there. So on the left side of this leaf, I'm going to outline this top red side. So I don't know if you can see this, but I put a tiny red line right here. And I'm going to do a little bit of dark red shading on this red area. Can you see that red shading I just added? So I did red, dark red on the left side here. I did it on the underside of this point, and I did it on the underside on the rounded interior. So it just adds a little bit of shading for the leaf if you wanted to try that. I'll continue to go. You basically are just going to do the underside of these points. So the top side of the points, you're going to leave as is. So it's kind of like picking one side of the object to give it a little bit of depth. So I'm going to do the underside of these points on the red paint. Nice and thin. And I'm going to bring this a little closer. And you can see the difference from the left side of my canvas to the right. You can see the darker shading on the underside of these points. Now you can do this technique on the whole leaf, and that's what I'll do. So it just shows a little bit of depth for this leaf tonight. And I'll continue to go slow so you can see this technique. On the underside, on the red leaf, leave the white as is. On the underside. And now leave the green alone. We're going to do we could do a dark green. Well, maybe I'll use the red. I'm probably going to do the right thing and make like a dark green for the green. I could do the red, but I'm going to think about it. But I'm just going to go back to the top and do dark red on the underside. And where the leaf has this U section, you can go all the way around that U section as well. So this is like a level, I call these level 2 tips. Like these are getting a little fancier. So if you feel like you don't want to do this part, you don't have to, but I always love offering different tips and techniques along the way. And talking through them, again, you as the artist, you always have the choice on what you want to do. Always, always. And on one side, on the underside of the leaf. And you can pick, as you work your way around, you can kind of pick which side you want to put the shading on. That's okay. You can't really mess it up. Just pick one side as you work your way around. But look at that shading with that white outline and that dark shading around. It's really making our leaf stand out, isn't it? So I am going to try this darker green. I have extra green on my plate and I have a little dot of black. I'm just going to clean that small brush and I'm going to do this darker outline, the shading, the same way that I did the red, but I'm just going to make a little bit darker of our green tone. So I have a little bit of green right here. I'm going to just take a little scoop, a little touch of black, just make a little bit darker of our green tone. And you can visually see, especially if your green is right next to the other one, you can see what a darker green tone may look like. How convenient. This is significantly darker, but this will work. Ooh, I have like a dark army. It's actually not too army, but it's a little darker. And then you can pick the underside of your green. Taking your time. Again, I use my pinky on the canvas to stabilize my hand. And if you wanted to outline some more of these down here, you could, it doesn't matter. And I am going to use one side of the stem I'm going to outline with this green. And it might cover up some of the white. I'm not really worried about it. Just adding a little bit of shading to that. So you can kind of look all the way around and make any refinements. Take a look at all your edges. But this is where we're all just doing the final touches. We'll do the fall in love in just a few minutes, but take your time with this step. I'll hold mine a little closer if anybody wants to see a close-up. I'll hold it here for a couple minutes. You can see my leaf is not perfect in all the areas. It's okay. Leaves are not always exactly the same, right? Mainly, but I'm embracing my imperfections and I hope you are too. It's all good. All good. Hold it a little closer. So you can see I have that nice green veins coming through. I have the white outline. White outline is totally optional. I was inspired to do that tonight. And then I did these darker edging with the shading on the underside or one side of each leaf and each leaf point. And that really just brings out the leaf. It will jump right off your page. Now we'll remove the spotlight and check in on everyone. Okay, Alice is smiling. I hope that's a good smile, Alice. All right. Douglas is thinking about it. He's like, Megan, I'm not quite sure. I'm almost there. Douglas, that looks amazing. Look how that leaf just jumps right off. Perfect. Terry, beautiful. Terry, you've painted leaves before. You've been hiding from us here. There's Miss Pamela's beautiful colors. Amazing. Leslie Moore and Co. Oh, Miss Diane, look at those sorbet color backgrounds. Very nice. Awesome. Everyone keep working. Yay. Well done. Well done.
I feel kind of embarrassed, you know, being a botanical artist for years and everyone is here doing an amazing job with your lip. It's just amazing.
I think yours looks great. Hold it up again. Let's take a look.
Okay.
I think it looks good. You have a nice blend of colors. It's bright and brilliant on the inside. Your leaf is like delicately has those intricate details. I think it's quite good.
Oh, thank you.
You know what? If I did this again, my leaf would look totally different. Let me tell you.
Beautiful. That was amazing. And the lining, can I share something really quick with
Please,
everyone?
yes.
Because I do miniature painting for years, and this lining you are doing is the most important thing that it was done by the master painter at Royal Course, and it's called in Persian is hotness. It means adding the depth, the final touches, and the most accomplished painter of all time. Everyone else was doing the paint preparation and everything, but the master painter was doing these final touches, that it really stands out from the
He's with the
whole
lighting and the darking to really just
lining.
bring out the objects.
Exactly.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so funny. Sometimes we just do what feels right, but the fact that other painters, far more established and professional than me, are doing similar techniques. So it's just about being in the moment, and doing what feels right. But thank you. I'm so glad you shared that.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to do fall in love. Some of you might be nervous to do this. In the last class, some folks were like, I'm not writing on my leaf. I'm happy the way it is. If anybody doesn't want to do that and you like your leaf the way it is, leave it. You are not going to offend me at all, but I will do it to be courageous and wish me luck. Sometimes we just need to be a little courageous in our lives. All right. So if anybody wants to do fall in love with me, I am going to use I'm going to use black paint. I could use a dark maroon, but I have a lot of dark maroons. So I want it to stand out a little bit. I'm going to use one of the smallest brushes I have for the lettering. And it's very fluid and loopy. I think that's the best way I can describe it. So the brush I'm grabbing is the 2/0 fraction brush. Sometimes I send like a 1 with like a long tip. I send a 2 with a long tip. Again, there's small gold numbers on the sides of these brushes. I am going to grab a little bit of black paint on the tip of this brush. And I'm going to turn it towards me. And the most important thing is to center the letters in the middle of the leaf. So you have a little bit of buffer room. So I always try to center the letters first. So let's just go for it here. Okay, so I'm gonna go over this again. It's not perfectly centered, but it's okay. I'm gonna go over the letters so it's nice and clean. Sometimes having longer bristles helps. And I'm going to continue these long letters with a little bit of a swirl going off to the left and a little bit of like a line going off to the right. And then the in love is written in caps as like block lettering. So the loopy letters is for the word fall only. In love is a little easier to write than the word fall. So I'm just refining the first word. And then in love is off-centered to the right. Block lettering, all caps. And there's a little courageousness. I'll hold it a little closer. This is a little smaller scale than my previous. I'm going to go over the word fall nice and cleanly. If you happen to do any lines that you don't like. You can let it dry. You can go over it with a little white paint and then use that background color to touch it up. That's okay to do that. Okay, I think I'm gonna just leave mine. I think there's one spot. There we go. And then I am going to initial this. We have small brush. You can either sign like the bottom left corner. I might put my initials like right here under the leaf. I don't know. I might just do something a little different today. There. I just signed it MBW 22. It's kind of fun to put it there. You could always put it in the bottom corner. We don't always sign our work at the end of classes, but sometimes it's fun to do that. Especially something like this. It's a little unique. All right. I'm going to remove the spotlight and check in with all of you to see how you're doing. Did anybody do the lettering? Diane's like, nope. It's okay. All right. Oh, Susan, excellent. Beautiful. Terry, nice job. Awesome. Everyone take your time. I'll hold mine up. Any final touches, do not hesitate to ask. I'm going to drop a few links in the chat while everyone's still here. So give me just a minute. Oh, here we go. Here's Miss Pamela's. Beautiful. Amazing. There's Carla and crew. Look at all those leaves over there. You all should be proud. Nice job. Gloria, that's beautiful. I love your colors. And you wrote it on the top. I like that, Gloria. Gold star for Gloria to be a little different. I like that. All right, I'm going to drop a few links in here for folks. So let's see here. The first link I'm going to share with you is if anyone hasn't yet, I'm always looking to collect feedback on your experience. So if anyone has not left me feedback, it allows me to just get a sense of what you enjoyed, areas to improve. But I'll go ahead and drop a link into the chat really quick. Here we go. If anyone has not left me feedback, I would love your feedback. It takes just a minute. I love your perspective on how the class went for you. Just kidding. It's giving me a hard time. Let's try this. Okay, there's a link. Hopefully it clicks. If you can't click that, let me know. I can try again. Let's try it this way. There we go. Let's try this link here. There we go. That's active. So thank you in advance for leaving any feedback from tonight's class. The other thing I wanted to share with you is the registration for October. So tonight's class is recorded, and I will be sharing you with the link if you wanted to try this again, or maybe share it with a friend. I'm happy for you to share that around. So here is the link for October if anyone's interested in signing up. I will include the October, November, and December registrations in the follow-up email that I send. But it's always nice for you to maybe click on both of those, or at least the registration. I'd love to see you at our next class. And the date in October is October 12th, which is another Wednesday. All right. But most importantly, I hope you had fun tonight. If anybody wants to unmute, tell me what you thought about the inspiration. I thought it was a lovely step into fall. It's always fun blending colors in new ways. And I don't know about you, but I had some really good energy from tonight's class.
Thank you, Megan. It was.
Thank you, Diane. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
Picture or no?
For October, I do not yet.
No, but this one.
Oh, am I going to take a, send me a picture?
Thank you.
Thank you for joining, Carla and crew. So glad you're able to join us tonight. Terry, thank you for joining. Thank you, Douglas. Miss Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie and Co. You guys are awesome. So great to see you again.
You too.
All right. I'll hang around for another couple minutes. If anyone has any follow-up questions, do not hesitate to ask. If anybody needs to contact me after today's class, I do have all my contact info on that piece of paper that I sent you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any little things you want to make a change for. I can do that. Okay. But again, I want to thank you for being here, for you, making some time for yourself. I hope that it was a time well spent. And Gloria, great to see you, as well as Miss Alice and Pamela.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy, thank you. How did it go? You're muted, but I think it was a neutral response if it was okay. All right. And any final products, feel free to send those to me. But Isaiah, thank you so much for joining tonight. It was so great to see you. You did awesome. And I hope you can join us again.
Thank
Maybe
you.
you'll be teaching one of the next classes.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, beautiful work, Leslie. Amazing. Oh, gorgeous. So be proud, ladies. Hang those paintings. Yay. Those look like little candy corns. I love it. Those colors remind me of candy corn. It's so cool. They look like beautiful leaves. Awesome work. Oh, and I like your haircut. Your haircut looks great. She cut her hair. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I hope to see y'all again soon. Take care.